Thank you. I'm Bret Baier. We are coming to you tonight from Los Angeles. Coming up, the congressional effort to maintain a key anti-terror tool, plus a jury issues a major verdict against Live Nation and Ticketmaster. I'll tell you how it could affect your ticket purchasing and what some consider a radical immigration policy by one of California's Democratic gubernatorial candidates. But first, breaking tonight, President Trump says he believes the conflict with Iran is, quote, close to over. The president telling Maria Bartiromo of Fox News another round of talks could happen within the next 2 days. This comes amid concerns over China's involvement and the effects on the U.S. economy. Senior White House correspondent Peter Doocy starts us off tonight live from the North Lawn. Good evening, Peter.
Good evening, Bret. Officials here are telling us they think as soon as negotiations with Iran wrap up and the Strait of Hormuz opens back up, then gas prices will start to drop. Problem is, we don't know when negotiations with Iran will wrap up or when the Strait of Hormuz will open back up.
The message is the short-term volatility for long-term gain.
Peace talks between the U.S. and Iran remain paused.
I saw some reporting, again, bad reporting this morning, that we had formally requested an extension of the ceasefire. That is not true at this moment.
Part of the problem, Iran says it will negotiate on enriching uranium. It just won't stop altogether.
The Islamic Republic of Iran, based on its needs, must be allowed to continue enrichment.
But stopping enrichment was the whole point of Operation Epic Fury.
If I didn't do that, right now you would have Iran with a nuclear weapon.
On Saturday, President Trump warned China not to send air defense systems to Iran.
If China does that, China's going to have big problems, okay?
5 days later, the president announces they have agreed not to send weapons to Iran. President Xi will give me a big fat hug when I get there in a few weeks. A few weeks ago, officials were very optimistic about gas prices, which today average $4.11 a gallon.
Are you confident that gas will be back under $3 a gallon by the busy summer travel season, Mr. Secretary?
There's a very good chance that'll be true.
That was March 15th. On April 13th,
well, by the summer is aggressive time frame now.
Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has a specific window. When are we really going to get $3 a gallon gas?
Well, I think that's going to be the up to how the negotiations go. President Trump said this morning that he thinks we're nearing the end. I'm optimistic that sometime between June 20th and September 20th that we can have $3 gas again.
Secretary Bessent also told us that officials here are very closely watching gas station owners who quickly raised gas prices when the price of oil went up. They want to make sure that those owners bring the prices down quickly as well, whenever that happens. Bret.
Peter Doocy live in the North Lawn. Peter, thanks. Stocks today were mixed. The Dow lost 72. The S&P 500 gained 56. The Nasdaq jumped 377. Both of those are new record closes. It is April 15th, tax day here in the U.S. As the White House says, many Americans can expect a larger return this year. President Trump is using a major media push to sharpen his midterm message on taxes, jobs, and affordability. Democrats say the president's policies help the rich. White House correspondent Aisha Hasni has details tonight.
Tax day usually causes anxiety, but tonight, President Trump says Americans should celebrate fatter refunds thanks to his big, beautiful bill.
It should be called the Great Big Beautiful Tax Cut Bill. People are getting refunds of $5,000, $8,000, $11,000 that they had no idea they were getting.
It's the first time the White House says Americans are seeing payoff from policies like no taxes on tips, no taxes on overtime, deductions for seniors, and deductions on car loan interest. Rolling out personal stories like DoorDash grandma Sharon Simmons, who says she saved more than $11,000 in tips.
The biggest, one of those that Americans have taken is no tax on overtime. If you want to work longer hours, you get to keep more of your money.
But Democrats say the tax bill is actually helping the rich.
The rich are having a field day. Corporations paid $65 billion less in taxes.
Every single Democrat in Congress voted against these tax refunds.
The messaging blitz comes as Republicans face political headwinds ahead of the midterms. This week, Cook Political Report shifted 4 Senate races towards Democrats. And another key part of the president's economic plan, replacing Fed Chair Jerome Powell, is up in the air.
And he said he's not leaving if,
Well, then I'll have to fire him, okay?
Republican Senator Tom Tillis doubling down on his opposition to Trump's pick Kevin Warsh after federal prosecutors escalated their probe into Powell.
My God, it feels like it could be a Dave Chappelle skit. It's so comedic.
And Bret, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said today he expects Warsh to get confirmed without delay. Meanwhile, President Trump is getting back on the affordability tour starting tomorrow with a rally in Vegas and then another rally in Phoenix on Friday. Bret?
Aisha, thank you. House Republicans have punted the renewal of a key terrorism prevention program known as FISA Section 702. The House is trying to line up enough Republicans to pass the bill amid terror concerns due to the Iran conflict. Chief Congressional Correspondent Chad Pergram tells us where things stand tonight.
House Republicans scrambling to prevent a crucial anti-terrorism tool from going offline.
FISA will not go dark. We have a little slight delay. We're working through building consensus as we do on all difficult issues, and we'll get there. We'll get it done.
Some Republicans balking at an 18-month FISA extension.
I want warrants to surveil American citizens, and the Fourth Amendment is not for sale. I don't want our federal government buying data from private companies on American citizens.
FISA is designed to gather foreign intelligence data, but it sometimes sweeps up the telephone communications of Americans, including President Trump, before the 2016 election. But despite his past opposition to FISA, the president demands passage of this bill.
The president of the United States has said, this is what I want, this is what I need, and there are rank-and-file Republicans bucking him.
Yeah, well, it's a little bit surprising, but I think maybe the president's a little bit surprised by that, too.
One Trump ally says if the bill is good enough for the president, that should be good enough for House Republicans.
This program is critical. It helped us with the operation in Venezuela. It's certainly helping us with the operation going on in Iran as we speak.
But to some, the president's demand doesn't matter.
He's the executive, we're the legislative, and we're going to see a little bit of conflict between those two today.
Some Democrats even worried about blacking out the program.
This is our single most important collection authority. If we just go dark on that stuff, a lot of people are going to get hurt, and that's why we just can't let it expire.
If there's a deal, the House could try reauthorizing the program tomorrow, but the Senate must align with the House. FISA expires early Tuesday. Bret?
Chad Pergram live on Capitol Hill. Chad, thanks. A jury has found that concert giant Live Nation and its Ticketmaster subsidiary had a harmful monopoly over big concert venues. Jurors in Manhattan deliberated for 4 days before reaching their decision. Fox Business correspondent Lydia Hu has details live from New York. Good evening, Lydia.
Good evening to you, Bret. This is a major win for state antitrust enforcers and potentially a seismic shift in the live music industry. After 6 weeks of testimony, the federal jury sided with D.C. and more than 30 states finding Live Nation and Ticketmaster operate an illegal monopoly. The jury found Live Nation overcharged fans by about $1.72 per ticket and used its control over tours, venues, and ticketing to box out competition and drive up prices. Live Nation pushed back at trial, arguing it competes fairly in a crowded market and denying it pressures venues to use Ticketmaster, but the jury was not persuaded. So now, Judge Aaron Subramanian will decide the remedies, which range from financial penalties to potentially major structural changes, including a breakup of Live Nation and Ticketmaster. That breakup was originally sought by the Justice Department before it settled just 1 week into trial, leaving the states to carry the case forward. The DOJ settlement stops short of a breakup, but forces some changes. It ends some exclusivity. It allows venues and artists to work with competitors, opens Ticketmaster's platform to competitors and caps some fees, and it also includes up to $280 million in payments to states participating in that settlement. But that settlement with the DOJ, Bret, still needs court approval, and today a group of Democratic lawmakers are urging the judge take a hard look at whether that settlement truly serves the public interest. Bret, back to you.
We'll follow it. Lydia, thank you. Breaking tonight, within the last hour, the LIV Golf Tour is in serious trouble tonight. The Saudis want out, eventually. Two sources who know the inner workings of the decision tell me the Saudis will fund LIV Golf events through the end of this season. That means the contracts, the television deal, the tournament venues remaining all will be funded. Other decisions about unwinding LIV or merging it with other tours will follow that. But sources say the Saudis' funding will definitely come to an end at the end of this LIV season, citing a change of priorities. Up next, what one of the top Democrats here in California's governor's race wants to do about illegal immigration and ICE. First, here's what some of our Fox affiliates around the country are covering tonight. Fox 5 in New York with not guilty pleas from two teenage suspects accused of throwing homemade bombs outside the home of the city's mayor last month. Officials say the two were inspired by the ISIS terror group. They were indicted by a grand jury last week on 8 federal charges. Fox 32 in Chicago, as the illegal immigrant accused of murdering an 18-year-old student is ordered to provide a DNA sample. 25-year-old Jose Medina allegedly killed Loyola University freshman Sheridan Gordon last month. The House Judiciary Committee says he had been released into the U.S. in 2023 by the Biden administration, despite failing to make a valid asylum claim. And this is a live look at Houston from our affiliate Fox 26. One of the big stories there tonight, the city gears up for its first ever Fleet Week. The celebration will welcome more than 1,000 active duty service members, along with several military ships. The event runs through next Wednesday. That's tonight's live look outside the Beltway from Special Report. We're outside too. We'll be right back. Tonight we're seeing newly released video of the moment an Oklahoma high school principal confronted and tackled a gunman who had opened fire inside the school. Pauls Valley Principal Kirk Moore met suspect 20-year-old Victor Hawkins after he entered the building April 7th. Moore was shot in the leg. Police say the former student is facing multiple charges. First Lady Melania Trump pushing for reforms in a roundtable discussion today about a proposed update to a nearly 30-year-old foster care program. The measure would broaden access to a range of services.
My goal is to prepare these individuals to secure entry-level jobs, become financially independent, and eventually innovate, create new businesses, and generate employment opportunities.
The First Lady began working on foster care issues after President Trump's first term ended in 2021. U.S. Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor has taken the unusual step of publicly apologizing for what she called recent hurtful comments about her colleague, Justice Bret Kavanaugh. At an event last week in Kansas, Justice Sotomayor criticized Kavanaugh over an opinion dealing with ICE patrols. She said about Kavanaugh, quote, "This is from a man whose parents were professionals and probably doesn't really know any person who works by the hour." The 71-year-old Sotomayor said in a statement her remarks were inappropriate and that she has apologized to Justice Kavanaugh. One of the top Democrats in the race out here for California governor is unveiling an immigration plan that critics say goes even further than the one from current Governor Gavin Newsom. Senior correspondent Claudia Cowan takes a look at Tom Steyer's proposal from Northern California tonight.
I'm very straightforward about this. ICE should be abolished.
With the California governor's race in disarray, billionaire Democrat and former presidential candidate Tom Steyer is doubling down on his pledge. In a post called "How California Can Put ICE in Jail," Steyer says if elected, he will ban racial profiling for immigration arrests, hold ICE leadership accountable for violence, and even imprison ICE agents, fund a special unit to enforce the anti-ICE agenda, quote, "bring those detained and kidnapped by ICE back home, and launch a Know Your Rights campaign for illegal immigrants dealing with ICE. Steyer compares the enforcement agency to the mob and writes California must put ICE agents and their leadership in jail for their crimes because that's how you take on a violent extremist group and win.
This is far left extremism.
Republican frontrunner Steve Hilton reacting today on Fox.
This is basically an extension of the Biden open borders policy agenda at the home front, internally. It's insanity.
California's June primary sends the top 2 vote-getters, regardless of party, to November's general election. And in a crowded field of Democrats jostling for a spot, Steyer has spent more than $100 million, far more than anyone else. One political analyst says that may not matter.
California has a long history of rejecting billionaire candidates, but I don't know if any of them have spent at this pace that Steyer has, with so little result.
Steyer also taking heat for advocating for the closure of all private prisons and detention centers, some that now house illegal immigrants, when he once invested $90 million in such facilities. He now calls that a mistake, but his Republican and Democratic opponents are calling him a hypocrite. We reached out to the Steyer campaign, but never heard back. Bret.
Claudia, thank you. Current California Governor Gavin Newsom has scheduled a special election for August 18th to fill the congressional seat vacated by Eric Swalwell. The veteran Democratic representative resigned from Congress and abandoned his gubernatorial bid in the wake of sexual assault allegations, which he denies, but more accusers are coming forward. Up next, how China is responding to the U.S. conflict with Iran and President Trump's message to Beijing. First, some of our other stories beyond our borders tonight. Israel maintains its bombardment of southern Lebanon a day after historic talks between Lebanese and Israeli officials in Washington. The Israeli military has periodically issued warnings urging residents to flee wide swaths of southern Lebanon as it targets the Iranian-backed Hezbollah terror group. A second school shooting in Turkey in the past 2 days leaves 9 dead and 13 wounded at a middle school. The 14-year-old gunman was killed. Yesterday, a former student opened fire at a high school before killing himself. 16 people were wounded there. Pope Leo arrives in the Central African nation of Cameroon. He brings a message of peace for its separatist region. The Pope will meet with President Paul Biya, the 93-year-old leader whose grip on power was extended for an 8th term in a widely disputed election there last year. While en route to Cameroon, the Pope made no mention directly of President Trump. He did, however, renew his calls for peace in the Iran war. And this is a live look at Budapest, courtesy of EarthCam. One of the big stories there tonight, the president of the European Commission says the organization has created an app for online age verification. The tool is aimed at preventing unauthorized use of online platforms, social networks, or sensitive websites to underage children. It will be available to all European Union members. Just some of the other stories beyond our borders tonight. We'll be right back. The anti-fraud task force led by Vice President J.D. Vance has suspended 447 hospices and 23 home health agencies suspected of fraud right here in Los Angeles. The total fraud estimated at more than $600 million so far. We talked about that recently with the CMS Administrator, Dr. Mehmet Oz. The number of suspensions is roughly a 539% increase from the 70 reported by Fox News Digital at the beginning of April. The Pentagon says the U.S. military launched a strike on another boat accused of carrying drugs in the eastern Pacific Ocean Tuesday. It says 4 people were killed in that strike. It was the 4th such attack announced in the past few days. The operation against narco-terrorism began more than 7 months ago, with 175 deaths reported since early September. Tonight we tell you about the latest in a string of incidents involving Chinese nationals and concealed biological materials tied to U.S. research institutions. A graduate assistant at a major university has pleaded guilty to secretly smuggling bacteria into the country by hiding it inside a shipment labeled as women's underwear. We get details tonight from senior correspondent Eric Shawn in New York.
Yo Wang-xiang was a PhD researcher in the biology department at Indiana University in Bloomington. He was here on a student visa, first issued in April of 2023, but pled guilty last week to illegally bringing in biological pathogens from China. Authorities say he admitted he was a member of the Chinese Communist Party, and investigators say he was connected to a Chinese government-related biolab, all while living in the Midwest for the last 3 years. Court papers say someone in China sent Xiang a package to his apartment near the university labeled as women's underwear. But the FBI was suspicious because the shipment came from a Chinese scientific company, and it turned out the box contained E. coli DNA samples. E. coli can make people seriously ill, especially children and adults over 65.
You could certainly utilize biological material, genetically modified material brought into our country that could pose a risk to our health or our economy. Absolutely could.
The special agent in charge of the Indianapolis FAA office that made the case, Timothy O'Malley, calls Chinese bio-smuggling a threat to national security.
In this case, we were fortunate. It did not happen. But this problem is not an isolated problem.
Zhang was sentenced to 4 months in jail but got time served. He was transferred to the custody of ICE to be deported. And he's not the only case. A Chinese student at the University of Michigan lab pled guilty to smuggling in a toxic fungus that could destroy crops and cause vomiting, liver damage, and reproductive defects in both humans and livestock. Bret.
Eric Shawn in New York. Eric, thanks. We're in the third day of the U.S. blockade on Iranian ports. The Trump administration says the action is working so far. Of particular interest is its effect on China. Here's Chief National Security Correspondent Jennifer Griffin.
All vessels are advised to immediately return to port if leaving and discontinue transit to Iran if that is your next port of call.
U.S. Central Command broadcasting this warning, announcing that 10 vessels, including 9 oil tankers, have been turned around since the U.S. blockade began Monday.
Vessels will be boarded for interdiction and seizure, transiting to or from an Iranian port. Turn around and prepare to be boarded. If you do not comply with this blockade, we will use force.
The White House believes the pressure campaign is beginning to work, with one analyst saying Iran may have just 2 weeks of oil storage capacity left.
I think in a matter of 2 months, we're going to see a regime really reaching the point of not being able to pay salaries and riots and defections within the regime.
The blockade also sends a message to Beijing
that we have the means and ability to impose cost if countries like China decide to take actions that are destabilizing or would be threatening to our national security interests.
China buys over 1 million barrels per day in crude oil from Iran, 90% of Iran's total oil exports, and is aware that the U.S. Navy could effectively halt Chinese commerce in the South China Sea if it were to enforce a similar choke point strategy there. The Strait of Malacca, the busiest shipping lane on Earth and the primary energy route for China, is often called the Hormuz of Asia. Wedged between Malaysia, Singapore, and Indonesia, it links the Indian Ocean to the South China Sea, handling twice the global trade each day as the Strait of Hormuz. 25% of the world's oil passes through Malacca each day. It is just 2 miles wide at its narrowest point. Fox has confirmed exclusive reporting from the Financial Times that Iran used a Chinese spy satellite to target U.S. bases in the Middle East last month. The IRGC obtained access to the Chinese satellite shortly after its launch in late 2024 and apparently tasked it with monitoring U.S. military sites before and after drone and missile strikes on the U.S. bases. Bret.
All right, Jennifer, thank you. Up next, we talk with the director and producer of the UFO documentary, The Age of Disclosure, and later the panel on the latest developments in the Iran conflict.
Are aliens real?
They're real, but I haven't seen them, and they're not being kept in, what is it?
Area 51?
Area 51. There's no underground facility, unless there's this enormous conspiracy, and they they hid it from the President of the United States.
Well, I don't know if they're real or not. I can tell you he gave classified information. He's not supposed to be doing that. He made a big mistake. He took it out of classified information. No, I don't have an opinion on it. I never talk about it. A lot of people do. A lot of people believe it. I may get him out of trouble by declassifying.
Well, welcome back to Special Report. No concrete answers there from the presidents yet, but a lot of movement on this issue. The Age of Disclosure is a documentary revealing, it says, an 80-year cover-up of the existence of non-human intelligent life and a secret war amongst major nations to reverse engineer technology of non-human origin. Now available to rent or buy on Prime Video. Let's talk about these latest developments in the search for answers about UFOs, UAPs, and intelligent life not from Earth. Joining us is Dan Farah, director and producer of the documentary The Age of Disclosure. Dan, good to see you again.
Good to see you. Thanks,
and we had you on at the beginning, well before your film was out. Now this topic has moved forward, and arguably the documentary has had a major issue in moving that forward with the president's disclosure order.
Yeah. I think we're at a turning point in human history here, a major turning point in which the truth is finally coming out that humanity is not the only intelligent life in the universe. I think we're entering this age in which the U.S. government will start to reveal all it has learned over the last 80 years about this.
The disclosure Truth Social came out February 19th. Based on the tremendous interest shown, this is from President Trump, I'll be directing the Secretary of War, other relevant departments and agencies to begin the process of identifying and releasing government files related to alien and extraterrestrial life, unidentified aerial phenomena, UAPs, and unidentified flying objects, UFOs, and any and all other information connected to these highly complex but extremely interesting and important matters. There's some frustration on Capitol Hill that it hasn't happened faster. You had 34 different officials in this film. Do you hear that too?
Yeah. First off, I'm really proud that the film has played a major role in getting us to this point. I think it led to this national conversation happening at a level it's never happened before, and it led to this presidential directive. Certainly, though, there's pushback to President Trump's directive to declassify this. The folks that have been covering this up and gatekeeping this information, they want to put it back in a box and bury it for another 80 years. They're not looking for the truth to come out. And so leaders in Congress like Rep. Luna and Rep. Burleson and Burchett, Carson, Moskowitz, folks in the Senate like Senator Rounds are helping identify evidence that does exist and sharing it with the president's cabinet so that they can decide what can safely be declassified and shared with the public.
You mentioned Congressman Burchett, and he's talked about it in a couple interviews pretty explicitly. Take a listen.
Just tell the American public, it's like I told President Trump, peel back the layers of that onion, let America decide if we can handle it. I think we can handle it. I have some ideas about what it is. I've been briefed on some things, and yeah, they're pretty wild.
Other interviews, he's gone a little bit further, but they're talking about it.
Yeah. Certainly. Look, this is the biggest issue of our time, hands down. The stakes are extremely high. You know, as the film reveals, there's been an 80-year cover-up of the existence of non-human intelligent life, and
there's no doubt in your mind, like as you have gone through this, and now you've seen the reaction of the film. There's no doubt in your mind.
Yeah. I mean, too many extremely senior members of the military, intelligence community, the government, folks who have had access to classified information about this. They've all been extremely definitive when they say that the evidence exists, that we are not alone in the universe, that there is other intelligent life, and that it has been covered up.
And part of the effort is not only a concern about national security, but also this reverse engineering part of this that Secretary Rubio, others, Senator Rounds have talked about. We have a clip from the documentary.
This is the biggest discovery in human history. It has so many beneficial impacts, including clean energy.
This one breakthrough can be the key to interstellar travel.
We can talk more about teleportation.
How can we use these technologies and all the capabilities that might come from it, not to fight a war, but to increase our standard of living?
It's hard to get your head around all of this, but that's a big part of it.
Yeah. Look, these UAP are displaying flight performance characteristics that we don't have the ability to do currently. The technology being displayed could completely revolutionize the way we live if we can crack it. And so a big part of the drive for disclosure is to bring about this technological progress that could revolutionize the way we live.
Well, it is something to watch, Age of Disclosure, and I've recommended it to a lot of people. I know a lot of people have watched it. It's available
to rent and buy on Prime Video. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Dan, thanks.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Up next, the panel with the Iran conflict and tax day in America, and then American history on tour.
Obviously in the best interest of Iran to meet the president's demands. I think he's made his red lines in these negotiations very clear. We are continuing to see how these conversations go.
There's no end in sight. There's no plan around this. The strait was open before the war began.
And I've reached a point of we just get rid of these guys. It's about time we just take concrete action to take full control of their oil. And I don't mean just a blockade.
We may be on the verge of major combat operations. I hope and pray that the ceasefire holds.
This is illegal action. All vessels are advised to immediately return to port if leaving and discontinue transit to Iran if that is your next port of call. Do not attempt to breach the blockade. Vessels will be boarded for interdiction and seizure transiting to or from an Iranian port. Turn around and prepare to be boarded. If you do not comply with this blockade, we will use force.
Well, there's the blockade enforcement, the speakers from the vessels. There have been a number of developments. No ships allowed in or out of Iranian ports. Humanitarian shipments are being permitted, subject to inspection. There have been 10 vessels turned around since the beginning, and it depends on who you ask, but it could be costing the Iranians more than $100 million a day. Let's bring in our panel out here in California. Yemisi Egbewale, former Chief of Staff Advisor to the Biden White House Press Office. Caroline Sunshine, former Trump 2024 Campaign Deputy Communications Director. And Trace Gallagher, anchor of Fox News at Night. Trace, thanks for having me in your studio.
Brett, great to have you. You look good in that chair.
Oh, nice. What do you think of this? It seems like it may be moving the needle as far as getting them back to the table.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. You know, I listen to politicians, a lot of sound. I like listening to the generals. The generals war game this stuff. They know it inside and out. And when the generals are saying, listen, when you start blockading the Gulf of Oman and you're not letting these Iranian ships out, it's one, draining the funds, right? So as you said, $100 million a day at the very least. The estimates could be higher than that. But the big detrimental thing for Iran is that after a while, after 13 days, 17 days, not only are you not having those ships going out making any money at all, but you can't put oil anywhere. They run out of places to put the oil, so then you have to consider shutting down the oil wells themselves, and it becomes a huge detriment when you're talking about the economy as well as the infrastructure for the oil, and that becomes a problem. So you can see where the Iranians are like, maybe it's time we get back to the table and work a deal on this.
You know, I listen to the Democrats, Yemisi, and it depends, but most of them kind of stick to the talking points, the prices that people feel here, the gas prices, the fact that this wasn't really thought out is really what they talk about. But there's a chance that they could shoot the gap here and that they get a deal with the Iranians. And then what?
Well, and then the Democrats kind of have to pivot to how this impacts people domestically and what the harms have been leading up to this point. Look, we had a fourth failed vote with the War Powers Resolution, and there are a lot of people within the Democratic base that are saying, what else can we do? You know, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer is kind of saying we can't do much else. We really have to hold them to the vote on that one end. And on the second, we have to figure out what the end game date is. And Democrats, really, that is their point of pressure there.
There is a hunger on the Republican side, too, Caroline, for an end date, because they know the longer this goes, the more it threatens the political standing ahead of the midterms.
Yes. So, I mean, at the beginning of this war, the Strait of Hormuz was open, and now it's, closed, then open, then closed again. Most Americans aren't waking up every day going, is the strait open or closed? But they are aware that we are in a war. And China wants to see us stay as long as possible. Iran would like to see the U.S. stay as long as possible. But we have to define what a win looks like for us and what a win looks like for the president politically is getting out of this war as soon as possible. There's a segment of the president's base that will stay with him regardless of if the strait is open or closed. But for everybody else, the moderates, the independents, the young men, the Arab Americans in Michigan, I hear from them constantly, we have to get out of this conflict and end it now, and the president can get that political win back. But that window's closing.
There's also this political frustration, Trace, about if we're producing all this oil and natural gas, why do we have the international prices, tied to it? And I had experts on last night saying, because we are tied to it, and there aren't enough refineries here, and we haven't changed our system to be able to produce what we need to produce.
We had a guy on a couple of nights ago, and the same thing. They're like, okay, well, the deal is it's all whole world's involved in this, and I know America's only getting 2% of the oil through the Strait of Hormuz, but it's the whole thing you have to look at. And you're like, well, explain it to me, because I don't get it. Why are prices going up here? And then they look at all the other stuff. Everything that's made with oil. Everything impacts the overall pricing of things. And so when you talk about gas, you talk about a world crunch, you have this emotional aspect on Wall Street and in the oil circles of the world that says, listen, prices are going to go up partly because of emotion, partly because of supply. That's just the way things go. But a lot of people don't understand why, if we only get 2%, why is it $7 outside the door? I mean, that's California. You literally had the former mayor of Los Angeles, Antonio Villaraigosa, with a little bit of truth serum this week, coming out saying that the prices in California have nothing to do with Trump. This is all California stuff, and he's a Democrat. He's running for governor, and he's right. I mean, the gas taxes and everything else makes this a big deal.
Yeah, see, it is tax day, April 15th. If you look at the average tax refund, it's up 11% from 1 year ago. The Trump administration is touting this, saying there's more money in people's pockets despite inflation, and they think it's going to increase as they get closer and closer to the fall. You buy that?
No, I do not. I think that if your tax refund is higher, you're probably crediting your accountant and not really the president of the United States. You're getting a higher tax refund, but prices, groceries, gas, rent are high across the board. So I don't think it's really going to level out in a positive direction like they want it to.
Caroline?
Well, I think you just look at the successful policies of no tax on tips and the Trump savings accounts. We can't lose sight of the trees in the forest, if you will. And the fact is this isn't just about midterm and success in midterms. This is about that I think socialism will be on the ballot in 2028 for the presidency if Americans are going to reject or accept that. And the best defense against that is getting more Americans meaningfully participating in capitalism. And what the president's done with no tax on tips and the Trump savings accounts is allow more Americans to meaningfully participate. So I think it's an optics challenge, actually. I don't think Americans actually want to see grandma delivering DoorDash to the White House, because we don't want grandma to be working at that age. What we want to see is young Americans getting in homes with the president handing them the keys.
You're saying they shouldn't have done the DoorDash at the Oval Office?
Grandma shouldn't be DoorDashing.
Okay.
We want to see young families getting in homes. That's exciting and hopeful for us, and we can do it with the money that people are saving through those policies.
All right. Yeah. Maybe a note to your old colleagues about that whole event. New York Times Trace, Trump increased tax refunds, but a political challenge still looms. Republicans lost the House in 2018 despite passing a major tax cut at the end of 2017. Political scientists generally see a weak relationship between policy changes and voter attitudes. Yeah. Some studies have shown that people who received a new tax benefit credited the additional funds to the person who helped them file their taxes rather than the political party that passed the law, to Yemisi's point.
And don't you often see that? I mean, we talked about 2018 where, the Democrats took back the House, right, in 2018, and you had the Republicans passing big tax reform. So what happens is there a correlation? The answer is maybe there is. Maybe people are satisfied with this, and maybe it's just something else. Maybe it's just the way you talk a lot about, what does the whiteboard look like? What does the calendar look like in the Senate and the House, and how is this thing going to go in the certain districts? A lot of it plays into that. I mean, it's one of those things, Bret, where you laugh because I have a financial analyst buddy of mine's like, everybody is like, the gas prices are killing us, and nobody says a word that a glass of Chardonnay is $25 down the road, right? That's the whole thing. It's perspective.
Choices. Here's the Senate Majority Leader on your point. Take a listen, John Thune.
Obviously, what's happening in Iran impacts fuel prices, but we hope those start to normalize as well. And I think eventually, as we get out and have an opportunity to communicate that'll come across to the American people, and they're going to start feeling it more and more in their pocketbooks as we hit a day like today, which is the tax filing deadline for Americans.
Quickly, deadline is a big part of that when it comes to Iran.
Yeah, and it'll really line up with voters if they see the prices go down at the gas tank. That's where it is.
Panel, thanks.
Thank you, Bret.
And finally, tonight, a special day.
These records, which document the decisions of our early nation and symbolize the bold declarations of our founding, have stood the test of time.
Founding-era documents have arrived here in California, including the original engraving of the Declaration of Independence and the Treaty of Paris. The documents are part of the Freedom Plane National Tour, which aims to make historical materials more accessible as the nation celebrates its 250th anniversary. They will be in display at the University of Southern California's Fisher Museum of Art from Friday through May 3rd. Before heading to their next stop in Texas. Tomorrow on Special Report, we will talk to the Bank of America CEO Brian Moynihan about the U.S. economy amid the Iran situation. You can also pre-order my new book, The Case for America, an argument on behalf of our nation. Hits the stores May 5th. You can order this online or at thecaseforamerica.com, where there you can also record your Case for America, a video, 30 seconds or less, why you think the country's best days may be ahead. Top 100 videos receive a signed book. That's it for us. Fair, balanced, and still unafraid. The Ingram Angle is now.